The anxiety was like static electricity crackling through the tunnel as halftime drew near. It was the end of one of the most intense quarters in the history of Indiana Fever. However, things weren't quite as coordinated in the changing room. Caitlin Clark charged at the bench, her jaw clenched and her eyes like daggers. Coach Stephanie White tried to provide directions over the clamor of the crowd while following closely behind with her clipboard in hand. Then it happened. Even if the cameras did not record the words, the emotion was clear. Clark, obviously annoyed, turned around in mid-step and faced Fairley directly. She shook her head, pointed to the court, and snapped something, causing even the assistant coaches to freeze. It wasn't overly dramatic. It was sincere. This wasn't a diva's ostentatious breakdown. This elite competitor demanded transparency, independence, and leadership. If you would prefer to view the unfiltered version of the story instead of the filtered one, subscribe now. If you intend to stay for the next meltdown, you should definitely subscribe. If you follow Clark's career, from the packed college arenas in Iowa to the record-breaking WNBA crowds, you can see right away that she doesn't sugarcoat anything. She is vocal and direct, and she plays with the zeal of someone trying to alter the rules in real time. But this was different right now. It was more important than a single bad quarter or a rotation that was skipped. It was about the future of the Fever and whether or not Caitlin Clark could be herself in this brand. To tell the truth, Clark didn't sign with the WNBA to be a supporting cast member. For 4 years, she didn't light up college basketball, only to be disregarded or told to slow down so someone else could dribble the clock down. Because of her style, which includes quick threes, no-look passes, and quick breaks that start with a rebound, fans are paying to watch her. But since coming to Indiana, she has remained cautious. On the one hand, you have the old-fashioned way of thinking, low-scoring slugfests, grinded-out possessions, and sets created to support 10-year league veterans. Coach White is comfortable in this circumstance. 35-foot branding shots and conspicuous transitional crossings don't appeal to her. Her role is to run plays through the veterans while upholding discipline and control. On the other hand, Clark's vision for the game includes up-tempo, chaos, pace, space offense, and creative flexibility. Rather than being reckless, she is revolutionary. At halftime, she was yelling loudly enough with her snap. It has been evolving for a few weeks, one could say. The plays when Kelsey Mitchell dribbled into a contested mid-range shot while Clark was totally iced out, the miscuts, and the delayed rotations. Beyond his emotions, Clark was irritated. It was computed. She is reading the floor 3 steps ahead, while the system holds her back like sandbags on a rocket ship. By the start of the third quarter, everything had changed. Clark came out with a very new demeanor and anger in her eyes. She seemed to be switching a switch. In less than 5 minutes, she went from being a facilitator to an assassin by making 3 deep threes. As the crowd went crazy and sat on the bench, Coach White said nothing. It was clear. Since Clark assumed leadership, the team had improved. Suddenly, the ball began to move. Colleagues were deliberately cutting and screening with greater force. Opening up after stiff-arming the offensive, Natasha Howard finally started to move at Clark's speed. Instead of pushing shots, Kelsey Mitchell provided Clark a transition assist, possibly sensing the shift. After a 30-point quarter, the team looked more like a postseason contender than a mid-tier mess. The post-game news conference was a maze, of course. The standard reaction from Coach White was, "We changed things." The team remarked, "Well, it was a good second-half effort," without mentioning the conflict that had clearly occurred on national television. But Clark, she didn't sidestep it. "We're trying to build something here," she continued with a steady glance. "And sometimes it means having tough conversations because we want to win. I want to win. I'm not here to be courteous. I'm here to take the initiative." And you know what? She's not wrong. If they want to win, the Fever needs to hand her the keys and step aside. In addition to being their top scorer, she is also their finest passer, floor general, communicator, and, in the end, their best chance to forge a modern identity. The WNBA is evolving. The old methods are being replaced by speed, spacing, and star power. Clark is everything and more. However, that shift won't be easy. There are still veterans in that locker room who feel they have paid more dues. Some coaches still believe that organization is the key to safety. Some members of the media still think Clark's confidence is a sign of hubris. The problem is that doubt is not the foundation of dynasties. They are based on courage, vision, and letting your best players mold the culture. And culture is at risk in this situation. There are more factors besides play calls and stat lines. The question is whether the Indiana Fever want to be a team mired in mediocrity, a mix of outdated strategies and seasoned egos, or if they are ready to be the team that rides with Caitlin Clark into the future. The fans have made the choice. In the arena, they yell her name. The item is selling out quickly. ESPN cuts to her reactions each time the ball is in her hands. She is more than just a beginner. She is a revolution. Like the halftime explosion, every revolution starts with a moment when the star finally says out loud what everyone has been thinking. It's sufficient. I'll execute it. What happened at halftime was only the beginning of a much bigger problem that is currently gaining momentum. In Indiana and around the league, there is a smoldering problem. To be clear, when Caitlin Clark raged at her coach, she wasn't just speaking for herself. She was advocating on behalf of all athletes who had ever been hindered by an overly rigid system from realizing their full potential. For every star who is told to obey commands rather than taking the initiative, and for every novice who is expected to do the same. This isn't just a power struggle. Tradition and change are engaged in a culture war that is just beginning in women's basketball. Stephanie is an example of a generation of coaches that developed their strategies through practice, discipline, and a one-size-fits-all playbook. To be honest, in the early 2000s, that tactic worked. It was effective when a league was fighting for visibility and consistency. Reducing mistakes used to seem like the best approach to get credibility, but the 2025 WNBA is a different story. More than just efficacy is what fans want. They want flair. They want stars. They want speed and attitude, as well as 30-foot daggers that instantly light up Twitter. They want to feel emotion again. And that feeling is always evoked by Caitlin Clark. She's not a perfect athlete. She is not flawless. When she gets heat check shots, even devoted fans hold their breath. But you know what else she does? She puts pressure on defenses as soon as the ball touches her hands. She sees passes before they get there. She helps teammates, rivals, and the league as a whole play better. This coaching disagreement is crucial because of this. Disrespect has nothing to do with it. It is related to alignment. Right now, Caitlin Clark is acting like a generational celebrity trapped in a role-playing environment. It is also seen in the body language and the rhythm of the game. The tempo slows and the offensive falters. Clark stands with his palms raised after another possession perishes in a corner. Moreover, contrary to popular belief, this is not a single game. This is a trend. The distance between a forward-thinking company and one that is too cautious to stay up is gradually widening. The video transcript makes it clear that not everyone is ready for the Clark era, so let's talk about the locker room now. Some players on our team, especially the veterans, feel they ought to have the power to decide. For example, Kelsey Mitchell has been the face of the Fever for years. It's also clear how tense her play is. The incapacity to alter Clark's tempo, the ISOs, and the poor passes. Instead than being personal, it's generational. Moreover, this issue is not exclusive to Indiana. This happens every time a young talent joins a squad with a lot of veterans. There is pride, ego, and the dread of being overtaken or replaced. But here's the disturbing truth. If they want to win, the Fever must choose vision before comfort. And right now, Clark is the vision. It's essential to adapt. She has to pass the ball when she calls for it. Instead of limiting her, this calls for coaching. Instead then encouraging her to alter who she is in order to fit in with someone else's, it involves concentrating the system on her strengths. A front office also needs to stop playing both sides. Right now, Indiana is caught in the middle. Make an effort to both satisfy its veterans and profit off the excitement Clark generates. But that isn't sustainable. You risk losing her after her rookie contract expires if you don't invest in her generational talent. Not to mention that Clark has options. She already enjoys widespread recognition. She may move out of Indiana and keep dominating headlines, merchandise, and sponsorships. If she stays, though, it must be because this team was built with her in mind rather than the other way around. Let's also talk about how the league as a whole was impacted by that brawl at halftime. As soon as the video surfaced on social media, it went viral. Different stories are presented in debate shows, podcasts, and TikTok edits. Clark is portrayed by some as an ungrateful newbie who disobeys authority. Because she finally demanded accountability and direction, others called her a breath of fresh air. But no one could deny that she did move the needle once more. Things start to become intriguing at this point, because that kind of cultural weight involves both responsibility and opportunity. Clark is doing more than just shaping her team's personalities. She is altering the discourse on women's basketball coaching, coverage, and consumption. She is proving that WNBA players may have goals, arguments, and opinions, and that it's not diva behavior but leadership. Think about the way we cover NBA players. We don't flinch when Luka Doncic screams at Jason Kidd. We recognize that disagreement is an essential part of intense competition. But when Caitlin Clark does the same, it garners media attention. It's a scandal. It's disrespectful. The loud double standard is being confronted by Clark. But there will definitely be resistance to that challenge. From coaches who believe their authority is being challenged. From commentators who expect rookies to be silent and grateful. From supporters who want her to follow her own path. But in reality, she doesn't have a lane. She is building a road. The most ironic thing is that the Fever is now playing better basketball after the confrontation. The offense is much more laid back. The speed has increased. Without the ball, players are actually moving, and the team scores goals more efficiently. It's like a surprise. When you trust your generational point guard, your team performs better. This is what's going to occur next. If the Indiana Fever are serious about winning games, not just tickets and clicks, they need to have some tough conversations. They have to decide if Stephanie White is the ideal coach for this club going forward. They have to decide if this core should include veterans who are resistant to change. They also need to provide Caitlin Clark both freedom and support, since no one succeeds in limbo. You can either empower your star or turn into the squad that had her and let her leave. Let's talk about the rippling effect because of Caitlin Clark's outburst at her coach. That wasn't just a Fever problem. That alarm was broadcast on television to the entire league. In WNBA locker rooms, general managers and coaches had to sit up and ask themselves one simple question. Will we be the next? Because it changes the league's gravity when a player with Clark's stature, popularity, and brand equity takes control of that narrative. Not only is she enjoying herself, but she is also rewriting the power system. Let's be clear, this isn't just about basketball. It has to do with media, attention economy, and branding. Every time Caitlin Clark visits a new city, ticket prices skyrocket and jerseys sell out. Local news outlets that haven't covered the WNBA in 10 years suddenly send cameras. She is the first athlete in years to influence markets outside of basketball. She has some impact off the court since the league and sponsors pay attention to her when she speaks, whether at a press conference or, yes, at a heated halftime moment. Check out the Fever Game's current packaging. They're being covered during prime time. All of a sudden, ESPN panelists include the WNBA in their overview. Caitlin Clark's presence makes it difficult to ignore the league's quality, not because it was finally acknowledged. Let's talk about brand deals as well. Do you really think Nike dropped a customized sneaker for a rookie just because she's good at threes? They chose not to forward with the deal since Clark creates conflict and narrative identity. 3 things excite marketers. Her brand was unharmed by the explosion at halftime. It built it. It proved she's not just here to take pictures and smile. She wants to win. You can sell that plot too. But this also raises the stakes for the Fever organization. You now have a player who increases your team's overall financial impact in addition to your box score. If you're not making the most of that, you're not only failing her. If you're utilizing outdated sets that restrict her potential, you're also failing your partners, investors, and fans. In relation to fans, let's discuss the new audience that Clark is drawing in. Both diehards and casuals are drawn to her. She attracts college fans who have never watched a WNBA game. She attracts people who are more interested in numbers and vibes. It's not a terrible thing because this league has long deserved greater attention. and Clark is pulling them in whether they want to or not. But new eyes also mean new expectations. People want motion offenses, highlight plays, emotive athletes, and fast-paced drama. They don't want to see 30-second shot clock grinds that end in 17 straight post-ups or forced jumpers. They want flair, and they want speed. They also want to make their celebrity more powerful. The Fever's present approach appears out of sync as a result. You have a group that continuously dims the lights and a league that is finally receiving notice. That must be changed. Let's pan out since other players are observing what Caitlin Clark recently did in Indiana. Young guards on rebuilding teams and second-year forwards stuck behind veterans who can't pass. They are watching how Clark uses her voice and how her franchise responds. If the offense, coaching, and Fever backer are all altered, there will be a fresh surge of player empowerment. Instead of being arrogant, other stars will start to make system demands because they know they can. Clark just shown that it is possible. But if they ignore her and bury her talent in inadequate spacing and outdated play calling, the Fever will set a dangerous precedent. If the NBA ordered other rookies to keep quiet and little, that would be a major missed opportunity. Since this is the actual situation, the claim that Caitlin Clark is a unicorn is untrue. She is the first of many. The pipeline is full. Hannah Hidalgo, Paige Beckers, and Guji Watkins are leading the way. These women will also not pretend to be kind in order to get popularity. They grew up watching LeBron make choices in Los Angeles. They have seen Steph Curry reimagine an offensive plan. They understand that stars are shaped like systems, not the other way around. And the WNBA has to make a decision. You risk losing them if you don't adapt to them. Not just in video games, but in real life as well. Let's talk about Coach Stephanie White again now. To examine, not to condemn. She is an excellent coach. She is a character from the first season. But sometimes that can be the problem. Coaches who are decades old often rely on what has worked in the past. They envision chaos when they watch fast-paced basketball. They detect logo threes and think irrationally. When people see players barking during huddles, they interpret it as insubordination. What they lack, nevertheless, is the formation of leadership. Clark's tantrum at halftime had nothing to do with ego. It is related to urgency. It was about saying, "We can win if you let us." That's leadership. Indeed, messy. It's sincere, even when it's emotional. And if White or any coach refuses to acknowledge that, they will keep losing the locker room one star at a time. There hasn't been enough talk about this. A Fever season might have been saved by Clark's confrontation. Sometimes things need to break before they can be fixed. There are times when the communication portion needs to be spoken aloud. That's what Clark did. She disclosed that everyone was already under stress. Additionally, the corporation no longer has any excuses. There is a path ahead. They've seen what happens when they adopt a Clark-style approach. You are given 99 points. There's room for you. You feel fluidity. You get results. So, what are they going to do with that information? Put it under the rug. May finally develop a system that grants her total authority. The destiny of this franchise for the next 3 years will depend on the choice they choose. The worst thing is this. Maybe the next time Clark loses it, it won't be during a game. It might occur over the offseason, at a contract meeting, or during a trade demand, because stars don't wait around forever. Not in the current game. Not when they know how valuable they are. Not with everyone watching. The court is where you are sitting. The audience is captivating. The cameras are moving. Then, just as halftime draws near, bam. Tension is rising. It is more than just a disagreement. It goes beyond a straightforward miscommunication. It's a conflict. Head coach Stephanie White is being yelled at by Caitlin Clark, the face of the new WNBA. And everyone in the league is watching. It doesn't seem like a special occasion. It appears to be the outcome of weeks or even months of mounting strain, unrealized talent, and an attitude so inconsistent that they might as well be playing 2 different sports. Let's be honest, this isn't just about one game. Here, identity is in question. Who oversees the Indiana Fever? Either the old guard adhering to structure or the phenomenon altering the rules. Behind-the-scenes conversations are becoming more open and honest. League insiders claim that Clark has often tried to speak up during team meetings. She has pitched faster tempo sets. She has offered suggestions regarding player rotation and spacing. She has highlighted the team's transition responses, glaring inefficiencies, and, for the most part, crickets. Sources claim that when Coach White benched Clark for an important possession in the fourth quarter of a close game, the frustration reached a breaking point. It was purportedly for leisure. However, onlookers saw Clark clenching her jaw, crossing her arms, and avoiding eye contact as her squad failed on offense once more. You can't help but worry if this is the beginning of a full-scale uprising.
It becomes even more juicy at this point.
It's becoming increasingly